Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast for Monday the 23rd of May, and joining me on this edition are audio reviewer Ed Selley,
the absolute best way to travel is by hat,
news editor Mark Hodgkinson,
you're all mad,
and assistant editor Steve Withers.
I've been shrunk, stretched, scratched and stuffed into a teapot.
And you're bald. So
Yes, can't really argue with that.
welcome back to the podcast. It's almost the end of the month, so we're going to do the 5-star reviews, aren't we? No, we aren't, because somebody hasn't put them on the running order. So if you've given us a 5-star review, we'll do it next week.
and blame Steve in the meantime.
Yeah.
He
Well,
writes-
Steve's always something.
Hang on. Next week is the end of the month.
Is it?
Yeah, the 30th of May.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Ha-ha.
Maybe I'll let him off, but then I'm looking at the running order here, and it's everything that Steve wants to talk about, and there's nothing for you, Ed, so you better tell us what current competitions there are so we can hear your dulcet tones.
All right. Well, current competitions there's just one of them, in fact. It's open to all members. It's got until the end of June, so you don't need to immediately rush on this one. But it is quite cool. It's for a Noon VR headset, so you can place great trust in your friends and family not to do horrible things to you whilst you're completely blind to your surroundings. So, yeah, as I say, got until the end of June. Get stuck in on that. And I'm going to preempt your next question. There might be a competition winner, but
There
no
is.
one's told me here. So I'm dependent on Withers talking again.
Yeah, Ellis DJ has been the lucky winner of the Hustlers Blu-ray. And just to make this clear, that title's slightly misleading. It's got nothing to do with the magazine.
Well,
Well,
that's a
I'd be wanting a
considerable
refund in that
disappointment.
case. So let's move on. Hardware news. And I guess we're going to talk about 4K Ultra HD again, aren't we? Mark, why are we talking about it this time?
Okay, so it's not an official announcement, but via a analyst's call, whatever that might be, Virgin Media have revealed that they will have a 4K Ultra HD box out to UK customers in the second half of 2016. Virgin, if you're not aware, are now owned by Liberty Global, who have a few networks around Europe, and they'll be launching their EOS, or code-titled EOS box, across those territories. At the same time, the UK will benefit from, I'll say that in inverted commas, the TiVo software for the time being, but I think there are plans to get rid of that for something a little bit more up-to-date. It's a rival to the BT Vision Box and Sky Q, of course. And other than that, we don't really know a great deal. So Virgin customers will be getting this, or it will be available by the end of 2016, and that's about as much as we know. As a Virgin customer, I'll probably put my hand up for that one.
The only line that's a bit is actually doesn't pertain to 4K, I'm afraid, but it does confuse me. I mean, I thought we were all supposed to be excited about TiVo. Is TiVo now old and rubbish?
Yes.
Have I not been paying any attention?
It's
in
so
the meantime?
outdated now. The UI and the menus, it's very slow. Content discovery, I mean, it's got loads of content there, but finding it is just a nightmare. It's just buried away with it under menus. It's a shockingly outdated system, especially when you look at something like Sky Q. And I was looking at I was down at a friend's house the other week, and he's got a BT box. Even that's a damn sight better as far as the end user is concerned. Yeah, it's a seriously outdated bit of software now. So unless TiVo are going to update their software in the near future, I can see it being replaced by Virgin, because it's very long in the tooth.
I see. I mean, I have to say, Sky has gone from being absolutely awful to merely a bit shit. So, I mean, I've not tried Sky Q yet.
In your opinion, Ed? In
my considered opinion, yes. I mean, in so much as I can remember when I first got Sky HD. If you typed in the search. Use the search facility, it was I think it didn't actually pay any attention to what you typed in. It just brought up results based on a random algorithm that the box was sent. But now if you actually search for something, generally speaking, it'll find it and allow you to make use of it. So things have improved, but I haven't tried Sky Q yet, so we'll see how that goes.
Where are they getting the content from, Mark?
That we don't know. We have absolutely no idea. Presumably they'll strike deals with BT and Sky for the sports. Other than that, we really don't know. Well, I guess there's a library of documentaries and movies out there that they'll just have to go and buy, just like Sky off, I suppose. No indication of whether there'll be a dedicated 4K film channel or documentary channel, but you'd have to assume so. And I say that they're reliant on BT and Sky for the sports, possibly other European broadcasters. So it could well be that they'll purchase additional content from them. But yeah,
see if you can sell them your Canada video, Phil. It's really good. So if they're really up against it, see if there's a market for it.
Yeah, they'd have to be bloody desperate, wouldn't they? And it's only 3 minutes long. Right.
Put on repeat loop forever.
I don't know where you've gone again, Steve.
Steve's broadcasting from Mars again.
So you could put it on repeat loop forever, which is how I feel sometimes when I'm watching it over and over again on test TVs.
Yeah.
Oh.
Don't look here for sympathy. You're not going to get any. Right, so okay, that's Virgin's 4K set-top box. We'll wait and see what happens with that and what kind of content they're going to have on there. At least they'll have Netflix 4K, I would imagine, Mark.
Yeah, I think almost certainly they've already got agreements with Netflix. I think Virgin are Netflix preferred internet provider in the UK. They're always top of their charts.
What does that mean? Does that just
mean?
Well,
if you go to Netflix, they have a rating for ISPs. If you go and Virgin are always top on that, so they're a preferred ISP. For
obviously,
Netflix.
paying enough money for that then.
Yes, well, no, they have got the fastest and most reliable internet connections. Generally.
Is it the most reliable? Because you seem to lose yours.
Is it? Because I'll tell you what, you seem to be losing it all the time, whereas I've got BT and I've never had one outage yet.
Yeah, well, my father-in-law was here gardening the other week, and I suspect he might have hit the box on the outside of the house because I've been dropping in and out all week. So, yes, someone's coming to look at that on Monday. But, yeah, it's definitely the fastest, that's for sure.
Hang on, you had somebody else doing your gardening?
Yeah,
an old man.
He's not that old. He loves it. I hate gardening.
I hate gardening. I'd use child labour if my son wasn't so small and rubbish.
We're getting
He's got that to look forward to, is he?
Yeah.
It's just outdoor housework. I mean, I know they've tried to glamorise it and all sorts of shite, but no, it's awful. I mean, until such time as they, that the continued decriminalisation of a certain botanical substance, in which case I might show more interest in experimenting with some green fungus, but otherwise, no, I can't be bothered. It's a place to store my barbecue. That's it.
Well, I guess the advantage is that I don't have a garden, so there you go. Don't have any outside space whatsoever. Don't have to worry about it.
Mine is basically gravel, mostly. So.
The cat must love that. Yours just must be a turd minefield.
Actually, that's what I thought. That's what I thought would happen. I thought, God, this is basically a giant kitty litter. She's going to use it all the time. I've never seen her using that area for a poo. I don't know where she doesn't use a litter in the house, so she's obviously going somewhere. I suspect next door's garden.
Probably a neighbour's garden.
Well, always go to neighbours.
And on that bombshell.
Yeah.
I think we've moved way off of what we talking about, Virgin 4K.
Yeah, well, I feel bad going to Yamaha now because I don't want people to think that we're talking about the same thing here.
We need to segue carefully away from this, don't we?
Right, so Yamaha, they've announced a new range of AV receivers, Steve.
Yes, Phil. A new range of AV receivers announced for later in the summer, or later in the year, actually. I think they come out in August and September. So we've got the latest, what they refer to as their RX range. The RXA 660, which I think is a brand new model, the RXA 860, the RXA 1060, and the RXA 2060, and the RXA 3060, which is the flagship. I've had a look at the specs on these, and I have to say they don't look massively different from last year's models. But having said that, last year's models were very, very good.
Yeah, I mean they had everything on there. So what are they going to add? They're going to up the power a little bit, maybe, and maybe change a couple of components, even if the internal components, even if they feel they need to do that. Otherwise, it's just it's a model refresh for the year, isn't it? Really. So. Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe they'll tweak the power and this sort of stuff. But if you look at the RX A3050, for example, which we reviewed quite recently, it's got Dolby Atmos, it's got DTSX, it's got Music Cast.
I'm using one in my home cinema now. It's my reference amplifier, and yeah, exactly. Absolutely stonking bit of kit. Really is. For the money, it's I think you'd struggle to get anything like it, to be honest.
I have to choose my words very carefully here because I am honest. I'm unable to disclose fully what's been going on. I can say that the 3060 is the first Yamaha AV receiver in ages that's gone through the UK sound tuning program. So there have been revisions and there have been component changes, and a fair amount of effort has been expended on making it sound better than the 3050 in direct comparisons in stereo and multi-channel. So,
okay, well, I think I'll be the judge of that when we get one through for review. Seeing as I've got the 3050
it's
here,
it's not just an immediate refresh. There have been some changes and alterations under the skin, but spec-wise, I completely agree. They are virtually identical.
Yeah, well, if that's the claims, Ed, we'll put it to the test.
Again, there are limits to what I'm able to say, because I've been part of the program, but essentially a group of Yamaha engineers come over with prototypes, and we listen to the new unit against the old unit against certain key competition, and essentially running changes and alterations are made to the product based on feedback from the panel about what they want. Alterations are made. I mean, in some of the sessions, significant revisions to the power supply for both the analog and the digital sections were made. In the past, with other products, things like output caps have been changed, and with that, actual alterations to the output voltage and so on and so forth. So, I mean, it's tweaking, but it's tweaking that you can measure. It's not just altering a couple of Shakti stones and putting it on a different ley line. I mean, there are it's
right.
It's
so there's no standard laid down here that says this is what a UK tuned sound is.
Sort of,
because that'd be impossible.
No, I mean, in so much as we have, there's a fixed ideal that's being gone for, but no, there's no Rec 2020 here. It's
right.
It's,
so
it's
basically,
subjective.
what you're talking about is how much warmth, how much sound signature there is for that manufacturer's sound.
To an extent, yeah, and then also it has to. It's not as simple as saying I just want it to sound like a British amp, because there's no point, because it's not a British amplifier. There are hundreds of thousands of Yamaha customers around the world who do kind of expect it to sound like a Yamaha product. So it's an odd balancing act. But having now participated in it, it's been quite illuminating. Doing notionally quite small changes to AV receivers has some quite surprising effects on them. Can I just say as well that Martina Hingis' doubles partner is extraordinarily attractive as well.
What are you watching?
It's Eurosport on mute. It's my go-to thing.
For what?
For just
no,
during the day.
Don't answer that. Don't answer that. No.
Well, actually, do you know? It's going to sound worse. Actually, I wasn't after the ladies. It was we're most of the way through the Giro d'Italia cycle race. I mean, screw the cyclists. Not literally, you understand. But the aerial shots of that and the Tour de France. It's just brilliant. Love it. It's really, really, really beautiful.
Yeah, but like everybody else, you're just watching for the one guy who's going to slip on the corner, go down, and bring the whole pack behind him on top.
Do you know what? I make no secret of having a gladiatorial interest in certain sports, but with cycling coverage, honest to God, couldn't give two shits about the cyclists whether they're upright or not. It's all about the coverage. And I mean the Tour of Croatia, I was minutes away from just downing tools and getting on the nearest EasyJet flight. It looked amazing. I haven't been to Croatia in years. I was badly wanting to go back.
I'm thinking of going there this year, actually.
I can't recommend it highly enough. It's great. Wear a hat, otherwise you'll explode.
Yeah, I have been there when you look at and it just gets redder and redder and redder, and it's like, Stevie, what, put a hat on? Yeah. Isn't that right?
Yeah, well, I do. I mean, I do. I don't so much tan as stroke, basically, if I see the sun. So.
Can I suggest also, a gentleman of a certain age, you're well past the baseball cap period. I would suggest that investing in a decent white-brimmed Panama would be more sensible.
I currently have two identical Red Bull baseball caps hang on the back of my door, actually, at the moment.
Well, that's where they should stay.
Yeah.
They shouldn't go anywhere near your head.
Yeah, you're not young enough to pull that one off.
Oh, well, I mean, no, let me rephrase that. If you are going to go baseball cap, Steve, gentlemen of your age and basic sort of demeanour, you need to go get something in from the States that advertises either an oil-based product or farm machinery. a good John Deere baseball cap.
No, but if he wears that where he lives, he'll never get down the lane without the farmer and the farmer's wife wanting to talk to him.
Well, occupational hazard.
Replacing their combine.
I mean, actually, for years and years and years, my dad had one of he brought it back from the States, a Caterpillar baseball cap, which had just slowly, it had an awesome patina. It was really great, but unfortunately, it was sized for my much smaller father, so it didn't go anywhere near my head, annoyingly. So I wasn't able to run off with it, which is a great shame.
The quintessential redneck accoutrement, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I, as someone with a mawkish fascination for that culture, I really wanted it.
Yeah, Ed, I think you'd be in your element if you just transposed yourself over there, redneck country, big muscle car, John Deere
built
car.
for it. Yeah.
Barbecue on.
Yeah.
Barbecued alligator.
Well, I mean, if AVForums is prepared to assist me in making my move to
US
correspondent, based out of Shittam Gulch, Kentucky, or something like that, that'd be fantastic. Yeah, I'm all up for that.
Right, moving swiftly on before we annoy our American listeners and our American friends. Obviously, we're just jesting. Don't take it seriously, please. Sound advice. So let's move on to the next part of that, and we're going to have 2 sound advice articles at the end of this month. The first one, Steve's going to tell us all about because it's to do with football, and Steve's our football expert.
Yeah, you've chosen the person who knows the most about football to do this article, which is an excellent idea. The basic premise is quite simple. Football's obviously coming. We've got the European Championships next month. And a lot of modern TVs, even the really big screen ones, don't sound that good. So the concept is, if you want to improve the audio of your TV, what do you do? And there are a number of different options here, and it very much depends on A, how much you want to spend, B, what kind of effect you want, and C, what kind of TV you've got. But I've listed a few alternatives, starting off with a 2-channel option. So basically, rather than having the built-in speakers on the TV, you add 2 speakers on either side of the television to create a nice big open wide stereo front soundstage, giving you a much more impact in terms of watching the football and a bigger sound to match hopefully your big screen.
Obviously that'll depend on the width of the screen there, Steve, because if it's a
40-inch, 24-inch or something,
you want to speak the speakers out a bit more if it's as small as that.
I'm assuming that the majority of people here are going to be going to have bought themselves a fairly large telly at this point. And are looking for something to beef up the sound. So my recommendation from a 2-channel perspective is the KEF V300, which is a 2-channel speaker system. We reviewed that, I think it was last year, and it was absolutely superb. It sounded really good, and amazingly, it sounded really good despite the fact that the speakers themselves are incredibly thin. So they complement a modern, flat, thin telly very well as well. It comes with an amplifier unit that can be attached to the VIII mounts on the back of the TV, so you can put it out of the way tidily if you want to. It just delivered a really, really good sound. And it looks lovely. It matches the telly. It's very contemporary in terms of its design. You'd expect nothing less from KEF, and you can pick it up for $6.99 at the moment. So it's not cheap, but you do get performance for that. So worth considering if you want to go the 2-channel option. Obviously, if you don't want 2 big speakers at the front and you want something a bit more tidy and something you can hide away from the wife, then you do have the option of a speaker base. Now, these have got multiple names: speaker base, speaker stand, speaker plinth, sound base, sound plinth, sound stand. But basically, the principle is it's a flat rectangular oblong box that you put under the TV. So the TV actually stands on top of the speaker base. Now, obviously, that means you need to have a TV with a traditional stand. The TVs with sort of like feet at either end or a long stand that's the whole length of the TV, they're not going to work. But if you've got a more traditional stand, you can pop it on top of the speaker base. And it's very tidy underneath, but you do get a bigger sound, more bass, and a wider front sound stage. I've chosen as an example in this article the Cambridge Audio TV5 speaker base, which you can pick up for £249. It's not the prettiest product in the world, but it does a very good job. It sounds great. And basically, you want something that's not going to draw attention to itself anyway, because it sits underneath the TV out of the way, and basically just beefs up your TV sound. Now, this would be something you could probably use with a small television. And in fact, obviously, if you've got a massive TV, it may be too big or too heavy to go on top of the speaker base anyway. Bear that in mind. But it's certainly an option. And then if you don't want to go speaker base, obviously there's soundbar. This is a massive market now. There's been a huge explosion in soundbars over the last few years because of the fact that most TVs don't sound that great anymore. A huge number of choice, but I picked something that I think is really, really clever. I think Mark actually reviewed this originally. I think it's a fantastic idea, though. I'm surprised more people don't do it, which is the Philips Fidelio B5 soundbar, which it's a traditional-looking soundbar with a wireless subwoofer, but there are 2 units, one at each end of the soundbar that you can detach, and these can be used as rear speakers. So you can have a soundbar solution, or if you want, you can even go for a surround sound system with 2 speakers at the rear. And these are wireless units. You put them at the back. When they're attached to the soundbar, they're recharging. I think it's a fantastic idea. Mark, you reviewed it. I mean, I think you really loved it as well, didn't you?
Yeah, it's a really good product. It sounds good enough, without the speakers detached, but and I really like the fact that proper wireless. So you see with some of these wireless or so-called wireless surrounds, they actually need a power unit, and there's all sorts of wires going on, but they charge and they communicate by RF, I think, to the main speaker bar, and it works really nicely. The one thing I would say, just depending on, this is particularly for the football, sometimes they mix the commentary in, if it's on the 5.1 broadcast, straight into the center channel and very little to the left and right. So if you're using one of those, you might want to boost the pseudo center channel, as it were. But yeah, it's an excellent product.
I guess it depends on the commentary team and whether you want to hear them or not.
Well, that is a point. It might be a bonus if you could actually turn down the center channel and not hear the line.
Yeah, I mean, Steve's talking about some excellent solutions here, but the vast majority of the time, sometimes you want to listen to the 5 Live commentary team and watch the pictures on BBC or
but
ITV.
it's syncing the audio to the video, isn't it? That's the problem.
Well, it's not just that. It's just, well, sometimes you don't want to listen to the commentary team at all. If I mixed it in 5.1, at least you can switch the centre off or turn it down.
True.
We actually might come back to this later in this podcast, but I think that's going to be the future. There will be an option where you can select whether or not.
Well, we've already seen it. It's Dolby AC4, and
you can already do it on the red button as well. BBC red button lets you do that.
Yeah, but the thing with the Dolby technology is that you can pick whatever commentary team you like and have them mixed into the sound of the match. It's really, really clever stuff, and they demonstrated that to us at CES, and it was a really nice solution. And of course, you can have no commentary team at all and have a nice 5.1 sound field, to like you're sitting in the stand, basically.
How do you play commentary cliche drinking game if you haven't got a commentary?
Just drink.
Just drink.
Just assume that they're saying something shite.
If I had a choice of commentaries and it was Brazil playing, I'd definitely go for the one in Brazilian, because that would be a nice enthusiastic commentary with plenty of goal.
Well, only if they bother to score. I mean, let's face it, against Germany, I don't think that bloke would have been too enthusiastic. Just saying.
I think it would be worth listening to just to hear how miserable they were, though. I mean, you can see the fans crying in the stadium was enough, but yeah, that was a memorable night.
So obviously there's more solutions that we could add to this, but obviously if we tell everybody it now, then there's no point reading the article, so we're not going to do that. We're going to move things on. But the Euros are coming up. What are we expecting in terms of presentation? Because they should be 5.1 mixes, shouldn't they?
Should be. BBC definitely will be. I think most of the Champions League on ITV is 5.1, so there's no reason why they won't be.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it in Atmos. I think that would be great. And obviously, again, it's technology that can be mixed with the AC4 technology. We had it again at CES, and even though it was coming from 2 speakers on a TV, Steve, it genuinely, the pseudo surround stuff genuinely worked.
Yeah, it was gobsmackingly effective, I have to say. I was quite dubious before the demonstration, but I had to eat my words by the end of it. And I think Atmos for football and other sporting events is coming. Certainly I know that BT have been testing it as part of their Ultra HD coverage.
Yeah,
so,
but nobody watches BT, though. I've got BT Sport, and I keep forgetting that they do football. But
technically, yeah. I mean, and if you think about it, the idea of Atmos really could give you that sensation of being inside the stadium. It would be a really immersive experience.
Yeah, but again, do you want that experience? Because if it's a Scottish stadium,
peeing on my pocket.
Yeah, I was about to say, do you get that little?
You get the full racism and swearing, and I always find it hilarious. And again, it happened the other day. I happened to switch on BT Sport, and it had a Scottish Premiership game on. I think it was Kilmarnock against Dundee United, and just as I switched on, the C word came blaring out over the speakers, and then the commentator's like, yeah, we're really sorry about that language that you just heard. Obviously it's the pitch side microphones, we've now switched them off.
You think they'd learn the lesson by now, wouldn't they, really?
I mean, I don't want to stereotype just the Scots. I think in most corners of the British Isles, line side mics for football and rugby matches is not a great idea. You probably want to try it for cricket. I mean, that could be unintentionally hilarious, but no, it just doesn't seem like a good idea.
I always love it when the commentator, obviously the stadium erupts into a chant or into a song, and you can tell the commentator, he starts as if he's going to talk about the song, and then realises that the song that they're singing is just coming up to the part where they use a really bad language, and of course he diverts his conversation, and you can hear the mics being dropped. I think it's hilarious, I really do. There's a drinking game for you, Ed, especially if it's a Scottish game.
I don't get to see many of those, if I'm honest. I did get to watch Liverpool fall apart the other night because my wife was working late, so I stuck that on mute and just watched whilst I was cracking on with some work. But yeah, you know. It
always reminds me of the Fred Macaulay joke about the football and how Scots are so eloquent when it comes to swearing and how Scots can really insert swear words in the most opportune thing. And he says he remembers being at a game in Scotland, I can't remember which game it is, and the guy in front of him was so angry with the refereeing decision, he went, "F***ing boo!"
I think if you want
where boo just wasn't enough, he had to get the F word in.
Yeah. Wasn't Billy Connolly who was saying, it's not a lack of vocabulary. I've got extensive vocabulary, but if you can think of an alternative to "f*** off," I'll gladly use it. And I tell you what, "go away" is not that alternative. I think if you want evidence of the beauty of swearing and how effective it is, particularly when delivered by a Scotsman, just watch Any of the Thick of It. I think Peter Capaldi's use of swearing in that is almost Shakespearean in nature.
Masterclass, isn't it?
Or Beg,
absolute masterclass.
Or Beg being Trainspotting. The glass and scene is just epic.
There's a new one coming in. I didn't realise that until this week.
Yeah, me and Steve were discussing this the other day. I mean, the whole team's back. Danny Boyle's back directing, and you got the whole cast back and all the rest of it. But I think much like the Olympics in 2012 and Spectre and that kind of thing, I think we were on the cusp of Cool Britannia, and Labour was coming to power the year after Trainspotting came out. The artwork that went with it was quite iconic. I mean, it just seemed to be the right time, the right film, the right place at the right time. The whole indie thing was taking off. Oasis were becoming big and all the rest of it. I mean, I think that had a big impact on how Trainspotting came across, the original Trainspotting. The second one, I don't know.
I don't understand the mechanics. I mean, I don't know if we're supposed to be discussing this later on, but I don't understand the mechanics of it. I mean, have they been on heroin since 1996? In which case,
it's based on Porno, which is everyone else's follow-up book, which I read years ago, but I can't really. The thing is, if you read Trainspotting the book, it's nothing like the movie, so
right.
It's nothing like the film. So even though I've read Porno and it's based on that book, it's not going to be anything like the film's not going to be anything like it. Going on how much Trainspotting was changed. I mean,
as long as it's not. What you don't want is obviously to see a bunch of actors who are now in their 40s. Looking old and sad, so let's hope they come up with something.
This is with the noble exception of Johnny Lee Miller, who's actually looking better now than he ever did back then. He's seriously ripped at the moment. He runs 8 miles from his house to the set of Elementary each morning, and he's built like a wiry lorry. So yeah, it came as a bit of a surprise that, but
Well, I mean, Robert Carlyle's back as well, which is quite surprising. So he's back playing Beg, and the whole cast there. I mean, Spud's there, Ewan Bremner, and Ewan McGregor's back again as Renton. Yeah, it looks like the only person I haven't seen yet is I forget the actress's name now.
And MacDonald.
That's her, yeah, MacDonald. Yeah, she's not in it, I don't think.
What's her first name?
I can't remember. It's something MacDonald anyway.
Old.
Yeah, and she had a farm. Anyway, what this has to do with sound advice and audio solutions for Euro 2016, I do not know.
We were momentarily distracted. Some of our finer work happened.
Kelly MacDonald.
Kelly MacDonald, that's it. Yeah, so she's done the voice for a few things. Was she not the voice in Brave? I think
yes,
she was.
She was. She also had a big part in Boardwalk Empire, so she's been quite busy herself.
All right.
Most of that cast actually have gone on to a lot more stuff. And had quite successful careers.
As has Danny Boyle, I think it was his breakout film, wasn't it? So he had done one other which was set in Edinburgh, which was Shallow Grave, before that, which didn't really cross over. But I think Trainspotting was the one that really sort of propelled him wasn't it, as a director.
Shallow Grave definitely got attention because I remember seeing it at the cinema and it wasn't hyped up as being, like the British. It was like Reservoir Dog, but the British version. Not in terms of plot or tone, but just had that kind of edgy indie feel to it, which was relatively unusual at the time. And I could quite enjoy it. I remember Ewan McGregor made quite an impression in it.
So anyway, getting things back to sound advice, and I'm not going to try and do a segue from that into that because I just don't know where we go with it. But part 2 of the sound advice is coming up this Friday, the 27th. So Ed, what can people expect to see in your next article?
Well, it's all about loudspeakers. Literally all about loudspeakers. I discuss the various types of loudspeaker that are available as options for you in the creation of a hi-fi system. Then try to cover what might be the most suitable type of loudspeaker for you in a given system. And then we move on to some preliminary tips on where you might start placing a pair of loudspeakers in that context. It's like the first piece. We're still at the, if you like, the overarching level. We're not drilling down into pure specifics yet. It's about discussing the options that are available to you, do's and don'ts, and what are the various differences between different types of loudspeaker system. So it's all good to go. I'm actually just looking at it at the CMS, making sure that I haven't made a complete Horlicks of it with the benefit of hindsight, but it all looks pretty solid. I've put bold bits in the right part and all the rest of it. There's even a photo of one of the it was a collection of bits from a little while ago actually, when I reviewed the Monitor Audio Bronze pack for AVForums of lots and lots of speakers in one place at one time. So you get a little glimpse into what passes for my home life as well. So you're all very privileged in that regard.
Okay, and this whole sound advice thing is going to build up over the summer as we go in, Ed. So where are we going to end up when we get to the end of it?
Well, we've got a couple more, if you like, overarching bits to cover. The next piece actually is already written. I just need to upload it and get some images together for it. Is about what equipment you might already have that can be used as source equipment if you are assembling a hi-fi system for the first time. It discusses what your options are and how you might go about using them. After that, I haven't got the roadmap up in front of me, but I think we start to discuss some more sort of specific sources which you can't just make use of existing items. So we'll be talking about network audio and streaming. We'll go and have a chat about turntables as well. I'm saving that one for when I'm a bit down because obviously that's always a lot of fun to write. And there are any number of other bits and bobs to cover as well. The only one that I don't want to talk about, and I think we've managed to agree that it's not going in. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking about asking about it, is we're quite content to talk about what cables you might need, but I have precisely no desire at all to start talking about whether they make a difference or not.
Yeah, there will be no snake oil in these articles. There'll be honest appraisal and what you need, and that'll be it. The other thing is, Ed, are we going to talk about CD at any point in these things? Is CD now a dead format when it comes to being a source?
No, it's far from dead. Equally, my suspicion is it's far from... if you're having difficulty operating CD as a format, I might humbly suggest that you might want to just crack that. In so much as it will obviously it's been discussed in part in this next item as ways of listening to it without necessarily having to fork out for a dedicated CD player, which is a much more questionable investment. But no, there are countless billions of CDs in circulation. They can be bought for buttons, either new or used. So no, the format has a lot to give, but in a world of increasing convenience, having a 26-year-old format that sort of plays set a maximum of 80 minutes of music. If you're
26 years old, I think it's a bit older than that.
Oh,
Ed.
You're right, absolutely.
I got my first player in '85.
So yeah, it's ancient. It's almost as old as Steve. So yeah, it's one of those things where it still has a great deal to offer sonically, but if you're getting into building a hi-fi system now, it's going to come down to whether you already have an existing large supply of CDs, because I would wager it's fairly unlikely you're going to start buying them in vast quantities.
Okay, so that's sound advice. The next one goes up on Friday, the 27th of this month. So stay tuned for that one and give it a read and give us some feedback on it. And like Ed says, these will develop over the summer. And then when we get to the autumn, it's our turn on the AV side. And we're going to include some videos and tutorials and show you how to do little tips and tricks and how to sort reflections by using different things. And do you know where your reflection point is in your room? Do you know the trick on how to do that, Steve?
I do know, Phil, but I'm not going to tell you because they're going to have to read the article.
Okay. Nice to see you promoting your work properly, Steve, and not just giving the answer away. Good stuff. Right, so we're going to move on. We're going to get the popcorn out. It's movies next. Oh, we actually have a review this week. Okay, so what's at the cinema, Steve, and what did you finally get off your big fat backside and go and see?
I went and saw X-Men Apocalypse, which is the obviously latest film in the X-Men franchise. The second X-Men related film this year, in fact, because Deadpool is also an X-Men film. It's set in the X-Men universe. And I have to say, coming off the back of A, Deadpool, and B, the film before that, which was X-Men Days of Future Past, I found it to be a bit of a disappointment. Days of Future Past was a great film. It was really fun. It had an interesting story, a time travel plot, and basically it reset the whole franchise, essentially ignoring X-Men Last Stand and X-Men Origins Wolverine, both of which were a bit rubbish, frankly. So I think everyone was very pleased by the end of that film that A, it had been an entertaining and enjoyable experience, but also it had kind of reset the universe, allowing them to take the X-Men First Class cast, which was the young actors like Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy and Jennifer Lawrence, mix them in with the older cast who were in the original films, people like Hugh Jackman and Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart, and then combine them all into Days of Future Past and set everything up for the next film, which was actually teased at the end of Days of Future Past. There was a scene with the villain in this film, Apocalypse, building the pyramids with his powers in ancient Egypt. And that set up. So I went into the film quite looking forward to, particularly having seen Deadpool, which I thought was a fantastic shot in the arm in terms of being irreverent and funny and very violent and very adult in tone. It was a very different film, but it still lived in that universe, and still, you thought, well, you can do a lot within this universe, and if you're clever and imaginative and trying to something original, then it can still be really good. Sadly, I found X-Men Apocalypse to be none of those things. It tended to, more often than not, remind you of other X-Men and better X-Men films, unfortunately. And also, it just felt that the villain of Apocalypse, really lacked threat, and you weren't entirely sure what his agenda really was, and what his powers were, because he seemed to have a multitude of different powers. He could absorb powers from other mutants, but it just felt unfocused as a villain, which meant the plot was fairly straightforward. He comes along, starts trashing everything, and then they have to fight him, and that's about it. It lacked the interplay and the comedy and the wit that you often found in X-Men movies. And although it still has a very good cast, you've got James McAvoy as Professor X, and Michael Fassbender. And Michael Fassbender, he couldn't give a bad performance if he tried. He does the best he can with Magneto. Jennifer Lawrence, though, I get the feeling this is her last X-Men film, and she's just phoning it in. She just wants to be done with all this nonsense and move on to a proper career as a real actress. So hers was a bit sort of, she's played it basically angry and bored most of the time. There were some new cast members, particularly Sophie Turner, who, if you watch Game of Thrones, will know she's Sansa Stark. She plays the young Jean Grey in it. Found her a little bit dull as well, to be honest. I'm not sure
dull
what
in
it's
Game of Thrones, isn't she?
Sorry?
She's dull in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, she is. I mean, you think in Game of Thrones, well, she's playing a dull character, but I think I've now come to the conclusion she's just a bit of a dull actress. Yeah. I mean, she's pretty, but she lacks charisma, which Famke Janssen, who played the older version of Jean Grey in the previous films, definitely had. So it's got some decent scenes in it. There's a particularly standout scenes in the middle, which I'm not going to spoil by telling you what it involves. It was incredibly violent, though, so I'm amazed it didn't push the rating of the film somewhat. There's another standout sequence with Quicksilver, who's the X-Man who can run really, really fast. He had a great scene in Days of Future Past. This scene is similar, so similar, in fact, you just felt like they were doing the same scene again, but on a bigger scale, which felt a bit stale. So in the end, the film just felt stale and not really imaginative enough. It just didn't feel as exciting as previous films were. And so it left me disappointed at the end of the day. And some of the effect, it ended up doing the thing that they seem to be doing all the time now, which is trashing whole cities again, which is getting a bit boring. Although in this case, the collateral damage was not only vast, but seemed to be bloodless, and you just didn't care. And also, because it's juggling multiple characters, and it struggled at times, I think, to give a lot of them screen time. And some of them really had no backstory, they just kind of appeared, and then later on they were dead, and that was the end of it. And so you didn't really care about them. If you want to see a film that knows how to A, handle multiple characters, and B, handle a plot where there's decent action scenes in it without necessarily resorting to trashing a whole city, go and see Captain America: Civil War. It's an infinitely better film. This was a disappointment. I gave it 6 out of 10.
Okay, and there's no way I'm seeing this anyway, so I really couldn't.
You just start watching an awful lot of films before you get to this point.
That's what I mean. I mean, I've seen X-Men and X2, and that's it.
There was that handy flowchart that was posted in the podcast, and I was like, bollocks to that.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that now, and I'm thinking, why would I waste my life on that when I've got Game of Thrones to start watching?
Yes, if you're going to watch something, Game of Thrones should be what you should be watching. Yeah.
So, not a great movie. For those that have been following it, is it worth going to see?
I think if you're a fan, you're going to want to go and see it. There are good bits in it. It's just I think people expect it. I mean, we got Bryan Singer directing it, who was directed X-Men, X-Men 2, and also X-Men: Days of Future Past. You got Simon Kinberg, who's been writing a lot of the stuff and kind of overseeing the whole X-Men universe for Fox. You expected better, particularly with the cast involved and everything else. But at the end of the day, I think Singer dropped the ball a little bit here. I think they were being smug. There's actually a bit in it where they walk out. Some of the cast members are going to see Return of the Jedi because it's set in 1983. They're coming out with Return of the Jedi and they're arguing about whether Star Wars or Empire is the better film. And then Sophie Turner's character says, "Well, at least we can all agree that the third film is always the worst." Now, they were taking a dig at X-Men: The Last Stand, which was the third X-Men movie, which everyone agrees was crap. But this is technically the third film of the sort of like the rebooted X-Men First Class, Days of Futures Past, and this one. So in many respects, you could say this is the third film, and again, it's not very good.
And besides, those rules have changed. Now, in a world where the Fast and the Furious series exists, you really need 5 to get into your stride. And it sort of builds from there, really. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. In the case of Fast and Furious, the 5th film is the best. So, yeah.
There are good Fast and Furious films?
Shut it.
Oh, you're kidding me, aren't you? Fast 5 is fantastic film.
It's a genuinely good film.
Fantastic film.
Well, Mark got his HDR rock this week. Have you watched it yet?
No, he's peering at me now, actually, from underneath his helmet. That's the cover of the Blu-ray. Yeah, that might be tonight's viewing, actually. Oh, I was going to wait for the 65-inch TV to arrive next week.
Yeah, I'd wait for that. Yeah. It's like me at the minute. I've still got these cheapio projectors in, and Nine's getting watched at the minute. 9 News getting watched at the minute until I can go back to my JVC. They're good little projectors for what they do, but
by the same token, they're going back on Monday. I've still got those giant Spender loudspeakers in the moment, so I actually have been listening to stuff I've wanted to listen to for quite a long time.
Because, your neighbour will be wishing they go back sooner.
They've been very supportive, but yes, I think they'll be pleased for them to go, if I'm honest. My wife is too. They are quite dominating in the room.
When I saw those pictures, I thought they were photographs of the Spenders you just reviewed, which were bookshelf speakers. And I thought, that's what Ed calls a bookshelf speaker.
You'd need a significant bookshelf, wouldn't you?
You need a bookstore to fit those in.
Okay, film's opening this Friday, Steve.
Alice with the Looking Glass, the sequel to Alice in Wonderland, which was a surprise hit back in, I think it was 2010, early 2010. Basically, that was directed by Tim Burton. It was a 3D conversion, and it was just after Avatar, so there was a bit of that kind of during the days of the 3D boom, and everyone was into watching.
And one of the best honest trailers as well. If we haven't got you hooked to honest trailers yet, what are you doing? Go and watch honest trailers. Go and watch the honest trailer for Tim Burton's. Yeah. It's brilliant. As is the one for Planet of the Apes.
Oh yeah. So that was a surprise hit. Made over $1 billion. Big hit for Disney. So needless to say, they've done a sequel based upon the follow-up book, Alice with the Looking Glass, with predominantly the same cast, including I guess one of the last performances by the late Alan Rickman as the Caterpillar. So I mean, it's not directed by Tim Burton this time. I saw the trailer actually before X-Men Apocalypse in 3D. Again, it's a conversion, but since most of it is CG, that doesn't really make any difference. And again, it has it looks stunning. I found the original Alice in Wonderland, I thought it started well, but then it could descended into sort of big battles and this sort of stuff at the end, which certainly weren't in the book.
Yeah, but like they say in the honest trailer, though, they were all ugly characters. There wasn't any beauty, was there? They were all really quite ugly designed things.
Well, it's Tim Burton. Tim Burton goes for beauty. He kind of likes ugly things. I liked some of the where they stayed faithful to the book, that they had the wordplay and some of the kind of the fun nature of the original novel was retained to a degree, but then it descended into just sort of like they almost like they felt like we have to throw in a big battle in, because that's what every film's got now if it's a fantasy. So they did that. This one, I haven't actually seen any advanced reviews yet, so I don't know if it's good or bad, but it looked like more of the same in the trailer, basically.
I won't be swimming rivers and climbing mountains to go and see it.
Me neither. The other film opening this week is Money Monster, which is directed by Jodie Foster, who is quite a competent director in her own right, and stars Julia Roberts, George Clooney, and Jack McConnell, who's a British actor, a rising star, who's been in quite a few things recently, including Angelina Jolie's Unbroken, which he was very good in. And basically it concerns a TV, one of those TV money advisors played by George Clooney. And Jack O'Connor's character breaks into the set with a strap-on bomb and a gun, and basically demands that he investigates what he considers to be a fraud. It actually looks quite interesting in the trailer, and that might be something I might go and see.
It does look extremely interesting, and I have to say the premise I find interesting as well. Unfortunately, I just with the actors and actresses involved in it, I just sense it's going to be impossibly worthy. That's my concern.
George Clooney and Jodie Foster, yeah, I think it might be a bit.
It's just going to be rivers of smug flowing off every facet of that film, which, does rather put me off a bit. Might catch it when it goes to small screen.
Okay, so talking about small screen Blu-ray releases.
Well, first of all, we've got The Big Short, speaking of money-related films, which I've seen and thoroughly enjoyed. It basically it covers the financial crash of 2008 and a group of financial investors who basically realised that the American mortgage market was buggered and that all these mortgage-backed securities weren't worth the paper they were written on, and shorted the whole market, and they made a fortune. And it's told, but it's a complex subject told in a very light and easy to understand way, with lots of asides where people like Margot Robbie will suddenly explain what a mortgage-backed security is and this sort of stuff. It's very well structured. It's got a great cast. It's funny, very funny at times, whilst being about a deeply serious, and for many people, and always not those at the top, but the poor sods at the bottom who got absolutely shafted. For many people, it was a desperate, and miserable experience, but they managed to tell the story of this crash and why it happened and how it happened in a very amusing and entertaining way, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Amazingly, it's got a DTSX soundtrack too, which seems unusual for what is essentially a comedy about finance. Also, coming out this week, we've got Spotlight, which much to everyone's surprise won the Oscar this year for Best Film. I've seen that as well. Speaking of worthy films, it's a very worthy film about a newspaper investigation, true story, Boston Globe's investigation into child sex abuse in the Catholic Church in Boston. It's brilliantly acted. It's got a fantastic cast, including Michael Keaton and Mark Ruffalo. Really, really enjoyed it. As much as you can enjoy a film that's about child abuse, but I don't know whether it was worthy of the Oscar for Best Film. I think it just, The Revenant is The Revenant's not an easy film to watch. It's not a fun 2.5 hours. But as a piece of filmmaking, it is absolutely staggering. Whereas Spotlight is very generic. It's basically like in All the President's Men. It's a very thorough study of a newspaper and journalist investigation into something, and that's done very well. But as far as filmmaking goes, as far as the best film is concerned, I think The Revenant should have won. But Spotlight is certainly worth checking out if you haven't seen it. Also out this week, Dirty Grandpa, so another nail in Robert De Niro's coffin. If you want to see him disgracing himself in his old age, go and see that. And also The Fifth Wave, which is another young adult novel adapted to the screen, starring Chloe Grace Moretz.
You're really selling that one to me.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can segue here nicely, because The Fifth Wave is part of the first wave of Sony's Ultra HD Blu-ray.
Oh, give that man a chocolate medal.
Yep, the first wave come out this week. So we've got The Fifth Wave, also got The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Salt, Chappie, and The Smurfs 2. They'll come out on Ultra HD Blu-ray this week.
Don't they want an obscene amount of money for the Smurfs too? I mean, for a film which is notionally you couldn't pay me to watch.
My addictions already reached very sad levels because I realised I had almost all the Ultra HD Blu-rays apart from the Fifth Wave and Smurfs 2. So
You haven't.
You are beyond help. Brilliant.
I think it's time for an intervention, guys.
No, we're enjoying you wasting your money.
Also announced for Ultra HD Blu-ray, this is Warner's latest titles that they've announced. They've announced Creed, In the Heart of the Sea, which will have an Atmos soundtrack, and Point Break, the remake, not the original, unfortunately. Those are coming out in the UK on the 13th of June. I will definitely get Creed because I thought that's, as I mentioned last week, absolutely fantastic film. Thoroughly enjoyed it, so that'd be quite good. And I might get In the Heart of the Sea because I haven't seen it, and it's got an Atmos soundtrack. I will probably avoid Point Break, but having said what I've just said earlier about Smurfs 2, let's be honest, I'll end up buying the bastard as well. Also, Universal have announced their first Ultra HD 4K Blu-ray titles, and that's going to be Oblivion with an Atmos soundtrack, so that's good news because that's a great film, and I think that should look and sound fantastic. Lone Survivor, which is going to have a DTSX soundtrack, and also Lucy, which will have an Atmos soundtrack. And they arrive in the US on the 9th of August. I don't know about a UK release date yet, but they're definitely coming out on the 9th of August in the States. So that means we've got titles from Universal, Warner's, Sony. Paramount have got their first titles out in the middle of June, which is going to be Star Trek Into Darkness. And Fox obviously have released quite a lot already. They've really, of all the studios, are the ones that are most behind the format at the moment, which only leaves, sadly, Disney to pull their fingers out and do something with their Marvel and Lucasfilm and Pixar franchises. Speaking of Fox, last week, I reviewed Deadpool, which they released in the States just 2 weeks ago. It comes out in the UK on I think it's the 10th of June. Absolutely stellar Ultra HD Blu-ray. If you're going to get something to show off your system, get The Revenant and get Deadpool because both of them look stunning. Both of them are finished in 4K. Deadpool's got a Dolby Atmos soundtrack as well, which isn't available on the normal regular Blu-ray. And Deadpool's got tons of really great extras. Fantastic. Both are really great films, but Deadpool obviously is a lot more fun and looks stunning, and the HDR as well really adds to it. So if you're looking for sort of go-to titles to show off your system to your friends, those two will be top of my list.
I love the way you're pretending you've got friends.
I didn't say me, I said other people.
Ah, touche.
Anyway, let's move on. Let's stay with some movie stuff. Let's talk about rumours, Star Wars rumours. Star Wars, we have to talk about Star Wars on the podcast. It is the law. Frank Oz seen on the set of episode 8 at Pinewood. That means we're going to have a Force Ghost Yoda. Yeah,
I think that's a pretty safe bet. I mean, given that Luke Skywalker is obviously one of the main players in episode 8, and we've established there are Force ghosts, and I guess they're going to find it difficult to dig up Alec Guinness and bring him on set. The easiest option is Yoda. So I'm expecting to see some sort of Force ghosty version of Yoda within the film.
Why didn't they do Ewan McGregor?
They could do Ewan McGregor. The thing is,
because he's too busy train spotting.
Maybe they could do Ewan McGregor because they did use his voice in that Force stream, didn't they? Along with a piece of dialogue they used from Alec Guinness. Obviously, Mark Hamill or Luke Skywalker wouldn't know who Ewan McGregor is any more, by the way, than he would know who the hell Hayden Christensen is if he pops up. He's only ever seen the old version of Darth Vader, the old man, Sebastian Shaw, was it? So, if he's going to get Hayden Christensen turning up, that would be quite tricky, although it'd be interesting to see how they could work their way around that. Yes, they could use younger versions, but all sorts to get a bit complicated. I think if you're trying to keep some sort of continuity to the original films, then use Yoda. It seems like the obvious and easiest solution.
Will they use the CG Yoda or will they use the puppet Yoda?
Interesting. If Frank Oz is on set in person, unless it's just to deliver lines off camera, well, I'd hope they're going for a puppeted version because.
But would you? Because they used the puppeted version in episode 1, and it looked like a Muppet. It really did. It just
they screwed up. I don't know how they managed to make a puppet in '97 look worse than the one from 1980, but they did.
They were probably far down the CGI wormhole that they just didn't put proper thought into it.
I'd like them to go puppet. if they can do it in a decent way. And presumably, if they've got Frank Oz actually involved in puppeteering it, I don't know if he was actually puppeteering the one on Menace.
He was, yeah. Yeah, he was
actually puppeteering it.
Yeah, there's a thing in the behind the scenes thing which I watched recently, actually, the documentary, the one where they're really quite honest and they think, oh hell, we made a mess here. There was reshoots, and in the reshoots, the one where Yoda is talking to the young Anakin, and pacing. He's talking to Obi-Wan, and he's pacing backwards and forward. That's Frank Oz because he's under the stage, doing that.
It seems like a sensible thing to do if you're going to have a Force ghost of some form, and given the nature of the I don't know the plot, but given who's involved in the film that we know of, then it makes sense.
Just be good. Just be good. Just don't be a remix. Don't be a safe bet anymore. You know, JJ played the safe bet arm. He got everybody on side. It was fun. Repeat viewings don't really stand up now. They really need to take it a different direction. If they're going to bring back old characters, great. But you know, there has to be an element of fun. But there also has to be, I think, with the second in the trilogy, a darkness falling over everything. I think it has to be a story where not everything's going to go right, and you know.
I want to see Rey getting her ass handed to her. You know, someone beat the crap out of her because she was getting away with too much in the last film.
I think that's a fetish program all of your own.
No, I think you're right. She was too much of a, you know, she could do everything in the first one, and it's like everything she touched turned to gold, basically.
I mean, I just can't get as excited about these films as you do. You know this. I'm sort of intrigued by Rouge One, but
yeah, I am. I've been watching that trailer again. Found it in my favourites folder and watched it again, and yeah, and we should be getting a second trailer a bit now, shouldn't we? Really, for the summer season. With the big blockbusters and that, there should be a second trailer.
We'll get a second trailer probably in the autumn, I'd have thought.
Really? I would have thought July, August. You know, busy school holiday time. Get the trailers up there. Get the interest.
I'm trying to think. What's a big? Is there a big? See, they want to tie it in with the big Disney / Marvel or Pixar release, and what's Finding Dory could be a possibility Disney wise, or I guess Doctor Strange, which is the big Marvel film in November, would be an ideal time for.
Finding Dory, I didn't even know that was coming. Is that a big film this year, is it?
Well, I'm sure. I think it'll make a ton of money.
Right, okay. So, I mean, I haven't really looked at what's coming up. I mean, I know Independence Day is coming. That's soon, isn't it? Is it next week or the week after?
Yeah, that's very soon. A couple of weeks.
Couple of weeks' time. I might even go to the cinema for that.
I might go and see that because it's not going to make any pretense about being anything other than absolutely.
There was a trailer for that as well.
Yeah, but the thing is, the whole reason I want to go and see the film is how they explain Brent Spiner's character coming back to life when he was killed in the first one.
Did he definitely die in the first one? I haven't seen him for so long.
I think his head was pointing in a direction that suggests that Paul was not well with his spinal cord.
Yeah, because remember they were doing the autopsy on the alien in the biosuit, remember? And it came back and it killed him.
Yeah. Spoilers, by the way. If you
if you haven't seen a film that's 20 odd years old. Also, no Will Smith, which is a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah, well, that kind of says it's going to be a bad film. If Will Smith turned
it's too bad for Will Smith to make it, must be awful.
I mean, if he's going to do Bad Boys 3, but he's not going to do Independence Day.
I've got massive time for Jeff Goldblum. I'm sure it's going to be shite, but I have a sneaking suspicion it'll be fairly enjoyable shite.
Again, honest trailers, the Goldblum. Right.
I'm not going to be. If we're talking about stuff that's coming out, I mean, the one that I think I'll be leaving well alone is Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
I just find myself very annoyed by this because it was picked up by an American blogger that essentially, if you have any reservations about that film at all now, essentially, if you say on any social medium, I have some reservations about this film, you can count in picoseconds how long it takes until someone accuses you of feeling that way because the cast is exclusively female.
Yeah.
Not because it's a very poor film to choose to remake, and nothing I've seen so far suggests that they've in any way done a halfway decent job of it.
The thing that really stands out for me, Ed, and why I get really annoyed with this whole, you're just being sexist because it's a female cast. Well, no, if you actually look at the trailers, they're female versions of the male characters with the same traits, personality traits, and so on. So it's not like they're taking it and making them into brand new female characters. They're basically taking the original characters and you're getting female versions of them, which seems really lazy to me, and that's not being sexist.
It's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, there are certain films which are so indelibly associated with the 1980s that to revisit them now. I mean, can you imagine trying to remake Cocktail?
Yeah, actually,
Can't
I'd
get any more
someone
80s
try
than
and do that. That is the quintessential 80s.
Or Roadhouse. Or let me guess, someone's going to try and do Roadhouse at some point.
You can't improve on perfection. Roadhouse was perfect, I think, as a film.
Well, this goes back to Ghostbusters is a 1980s staple with all that was good and bad about that decade.
I don't have an issue with Ghostbusters being remade, and I don't have an issue with the all-female cast. I like a lot of the actresses involved. They've been very funny in other things. Paul Feig done some great movies. The first trailer, though, looked dire. It just didn't look very funny. It looked rubbish. The second trailer, at least, looked better. It had more jokes in it. It had a better tone to it than the first trailer. So, I'll probably go and see it. But I'm more excited about the prospect of getting Ghostbusters, the original film, on Ultra HD Blu-ray with HDR and 4K, and the same for Independence Day, getting Independence Day as an Ultra HD Blu-ray and 4K HDR and also DTSX soundtrack.
You see, Ghostbusters is such a part of my childhood. The optimal way for me to watch it is in 4:3 VHS tape. That's what it should look like. I get what you're saying, Steve. Obviously, one should always appreciate the quality medium as well. But it was a film that was on Boxing Day, usually. It doesn't look right unless it breaks for adverts for the, whatever furniture sale was going on at the time.
Well, Steve, I'm going through the rest of the list here for films coming out this year, and there's not a lot there that's piquing my interest. Star Trek Beyond, I'm not hearing good things about that.
Looks dire in the trailers. It looks absolutely awful. Finding Dory, another Pixar sequel, suggests they're running out of ideas fast. Jason Bourne, another sequel, although I've got to say, I know it's quite good. I'm quite keen on that.
But looking at the trailer for this new, they have allowed Bourne to age as well, which I think is
I don't get much choice using. Did they?
Well, I don't know. Roger Moore fought it for 20 years quite successfully.
But 59, he made View to a Kill.
Yeah, a boyish 59 years old. So that being the case, I don't know. I guardedly optimistic about that. I would love them to look back at the original Bourne identity and how that had camera work that didn't induce nausea and things like that, and just revisit some of the things that made that a truly stonking film. But we'll see. It must be said, Matt Damon generally, he hasn't reached the Robert De Niro stage of his career where he'll do anything. I've never been able to substantiate it. There was always that scurrilous rumour on the internet that he actually bought his Team America puppet at a charity auction.
Did he?
But I've not been able to ever confirm.
I just thought that was brilliant. It's just one of the best send-ups ever. Matt Damon. Okay, to wrap up on the podcast, because we are going over time, Daniel Craig this week has said he's not going to reprise his role as James Bond. I think
he made that abundantly clear.
I think he was being
totally phoning it in Inspector, didn't he? I mean, he couldn't have given him monkeys in that film.
So, and
he looked bored in every scene.
He must be rolling in it, because he, according to Twitter sphere, he was offered $68 million to come back and do 2 films. That's a ridiculous amount of money. Anyway, so Twitter exploded yesterday on the news that he's not going to come back, and one of the big things was that the next James Bond should be female.
Yeah, well, I don't want to sound sexist here, but that's ridiculous. If you just this argument's also going to apply to Idris Elba, who I've got nothing against. I think he's a fantastic actor, good action star, done some great movies. But we've an established gender and ethnicity for a character. And I don't think just changing that entirely for the sake of it makes any sense. Pick an actor who matches the role they're meant to be playing. It'd be like me playing Martin Luther King.
Right, so here's
it. Who reads the books now?
I don't have a problem with Bond's ethnicity, oddly. In so much as I've long subscribed to the fact that when one assumes the 007 name, you also given the name James Bond.
You assume it's an actual person. His father is Scottish, his mother is French, and he's not black or female.
My problem with Idris Elba is one we've covered dozens of times. He's not significantly younger than Daniel Craig. And if you want more than one film out of him, I'm afraid he's already too old.
He is a bit too old.
I think he's a bit heavy as well, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean
big bloke, isn't he?
He's a big bloke, and to do the stuff that you'd be required to do, I don't see it. But anyway, Twitter's top 5 frontrunners are Tom Hiddleston at number 1,
Meh.
Idris Elba number 2, Tom Hardy number 3, Henry Cavill at number 4, and Michael Fassbender number 5.
Actually, Henry Cavill and Michael Fassbender would be.
Obviously,
if we've already removed Danny Dyer from this, I think it's a massive mistake.
Henry Cavill came second to Daniel Craig when they cast Daniel Craig originally. He was actually a close second to Daniel Craig, but at the time was considered too young. He'd be the right age now, but I'm guessing he's got his hands full playing Superman at the moment. Michael Fassbender, I've long been pushing as a great choice for Bond. I think he could play the cold killer aspect of the role really well. Tom Hardy, I can't stand. I would hate to see him in the part.
I don't have a problem with Tom Hardy, but actually, like Idris Elba, he's a big lad.
He's also a bit short, isn't he? Tom Hardy. He's not a tall man. I don't believe.
He's just wide.
He's wide. Yeah, he's bulky. Not great. Hiddleston. I mean, he's from what I can tell. He had meetings with them last week. There were some dodgy large bets going on at the bookies at the weekend. They've now stopped taking bets on Tom Hiddleston, so I'm guessing he's a shoo-in. I think it's a done deal.
I don't have a problem with that.
I think it'd be a good choice. I like Tom Hiddleston. I think he's charismatic. He's a good actor.
I'm with you. I would have rather seen Michael Fassbender, but it really depends what else he's up to. I don't want to. This sounds a bit weird considering he's just done 3 X-Men films and stuff like that. I don't know how willing he'd be to stick at it for any length of time. I don't know why I feel that way, but it just strikes me that he might not be up
obviously I need to caveat this with obviously these results were done by VIII Brain, who analysed the hashtags next Bond and next James Bond for a day. Yeah. So it's I'll caveat with that they're using analytics to do that, and but that was the result. It was 1964 tweets in agreement for Tom Hiddleston, and that was way above everybody else.
This is true.
Just as an aside, I don't know who Henry Cavill was until I just Googled it. But if you
hello,
sorry, if you start typing Henry into
back with his pruning shears again or something hitting your box.
No, I'll just hit the mute button, but inadvertently. If you start typing Henry into Google search bar, Henry Kelly comes up before Henry Cavill.
Fantastic.
Oh well, he'd be game for a laugh.
Indeed, going for gold.
I was going to say Bond's not Irish, but then of course Pierce Brosnan, wasn't he? So.
Yeah.
Well, we've had an Irishman, a Scotsman, a Welsh.
Is it now time for a Welsh?
Well, he's more Scottish than anything else, really. The character.
A heavily Welsh Bond, really, really, really Welsh.
I don't know if you watch. Oh, what's the name of it? It's on BBC 4. Hinterland. Has anybody been watching it? What a day! I hope the Welsh Tourist Board don't watch it because they'll be in tears afterwards because it just plays up to every stereotype you can think of, and it is shot so bleak. I mean, really bleak. It just makes Wales look like somewhere you do not want to go. Wild West full of strange people.
I don't know. Ever since I've watched Twin Town, I've been on. I
drive over that bridge into Wales. Can I just remind everyone, by the way, we've already had a Welsh Bond. Timothy Dalton was Welsh.
Is he? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Wouldn't Colwyn Bay.
I mean, obviously, you have a massive man crush on Timothy Dalton. I thought he was an average Bond. It didn't help. License to Kill, a revenge Bond film. We've established revenge Bond films aren't desperately good. Living Daylights is a nice chunky piece of Cold War nostalgia.
It'd be nice to see a Bond film where he actually stays with his employer for more than 5 minutes and doesn't go rogue or fall out with him.
Go Rouge.
Bond in a bit of Rouge. Well, if we get a female Bond, that could actually happen, couldn't it?
Yeah, let's end on that bombshell, shall we? And that is the podcast for this week. My thanks to Steve Withers.
Her name is Idiot.
Mark Hodgkinson.
Spoon.
And Ed Selley.
All this talk of blood and slaying has put me off my tea.
Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark AVForums for latest reviews, news and video, and of course, leave us the 5-star iTunes ratings, and we'll read them out next week. Steve will put them in next week's running order. We will mention you, so go and give us 5-star reviews. It has to be 5 stars, otherwise we ignore you. I'm Phil Hinton. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you again next Monday.